Little Jimmy decided to get his life together. For the last 2 weeks, he has been on a steady self-improvement grind. He got a decent job with coworkers that he really gets along with, and he's learning some really useful skills. He's been eating a lot better, and he started lifting 3 days a week. Little Jimmy feels unstoppable. Unfortunately, nothing can ever go perfectly all the time, so naturally something unexpected came along. Thanks to watching Money Mouth Productions, one of Jimmy's new habits is planning out what he wants his day to look like the night before. On one fateful Friday night, Jimmy forgot to set his alarm and ended up oversleeping for 2 hours. Oh no! Jimmy had a plan for the day, but since he lost 2 hours for oversleeping, that's when he hears it. The voice in the back of his head saying, well, you lost 2 hours of your day. All your plans now have gone to shit. Your entire day, it's screwed. That's it. It's done. You know? And since the day's screwed, may as well just pull out that phone and start that endless death scroll. With his next action, all of Jimmy's momentum will have gone in vain. With his next action, all of the momentum that little Jimmy has built up over the past 2 weeks will just vanish instantaneously. Little Jimmy says, fuck it, and dives headfirst back into degeneracy. No, Jimmy, no, you've come so far! What starts off as feeling nice, comfortable, relaxing, quickly turns into a quicksand pit, a trap. An object at rest stays at rest. Little Jimmy has so much time ahead of him to work on all of his side projects that he wants to accomplish. But unfortunately, he's paralyzed. Every time he looks at his watch, another 20, 30, 45 minutes is gone in what seems like a blink of an eye. Every minute that passes is just another minute closer to the end of the weekend, which means Jimmy's just kind of pissing away all the time that he does have to work on his passion project. Little Jimmy's anxiety grows, but it simultaneously becomes more and more difficult to actually do anything. Jimmy has fallen for the oldest trick in the book, the fuck it mind trap. A few weeks ago, something very similar happened to myself. I was gearing up to switch my training program. I was doing what was called the Pure Aesthetics program, where I was just focusing on hypertrophy lifts, and I was going into what I was calling the Pure Performance program. So lifting 3 times a week, running 3 times a week. Anyway, it was the last leg day of the Pure Aesthetics program that I was working on. I lifted a little too heavy and I ended up really seriously hurting my back. For the next 2 weeks, I would pretty much be in severe pain. Instead of trying to be proactive and figuring out some solutions, I just stopped working out altogether and hoped the problem would fix itself. On paper, this makes sense, not working out, because I wanted to recover faster so that I could get into the gym faster. What I wasn't prepared for was that sinister voice in the back of my head. You know, you're trying to recover right now, you're in pain, you're tired, let's just forget about YouTube, let's forget about fitness, let's forget about all these things you're trying to work on for just a second and relax. Just open up your phone, you know, let's enjoy ourselves a little bit. Just start scrolling, it's fine. And just like little Jimmy, I made the worst mistake possible, which is to say, fuck it. Just as we build up momentum with self-improvement, so too do we build momentum with self-sabotage. And once it starts, it can be really difficult to stop. But it's possible. If you're anything like me and your momentum stops, you're going to find yourself sitting on the couch and doing nothing except for watching YouTube or playing video games. You'll begin to feel grime growing on your body and physically weighing you down. I mean, you'll barely have the motivation to get up and go to the bathroom. Considering we're facing this level of lethargy where going to the bathroom is a chore, how do we actually fight this? How do we reverse this momentum and get back on track? Step 1, Really simple. Just move your ass. It doesn't matter what you do exactly, you just need to get your ass in gear. The goal is to remove yourself physically and mentally from the fuck it environment. Start by standing up, wash the dishes, start the laundry, go for a walk, anything. I don't care. Do literally anything other than what you're doing right now. The reason we need to start physically moving our body is because our mind follows our body. Our brain is the most complex thing in the universe, but the reason life developed a brain in the first place was to make the process of acquiring energy easier. Instead of lifelessly floating around and waiting for energy to come to us, we now have this mechanism in our brain that allows us to be propelled forward in space and make it a little bit more likely that we acquire energy actively. If you're not moving your body, you are not using your mind. If you're not moving, your body doesn't have any reason to give you all of those delicious motivation drugs. They're the ones you hear about all the time, man. Dopamine, serotonin, oxytocin, you know the rest. Endorphins, yada, yada, yada. The motivation drugs. The things that want to make you keep moving. Start moving your body and you'll automatically start feeling more motivated. Step 2 is to identify the problem. The first step in fixing a problem is recognizing that there is one. The next step after that is to recognize what is the root of the problem. The problem could be many things, but it's most likely we've come across some sort of obstacle or circumstance that we don't know how to deal with or aren't willing to deal with. Some kind of block or distraction. You see, whenever we're met with any sort of unforeseen circumstance, we are met with what I would like to call the opposition, or the devil on your shoulder that whispers bad stuff to you. So yeah, the opposition is immediately called forth to tempt us back into our old, stupid habits. It wants us to crawl back to where we think it's safe. You know, F it. Problem's gonna be too hard to solve and too time consuming. We should probably just save it for later, and in the meantime, just numb ourselves by doing some delicious drugs and alcohol and tons of mindless scrolling on shorts on YouTube. This is the fuck it mentality trap, and it's what causes us to lose all of our momentum. When we find ourselves thinking these thoughts, we can implement a psychological technique that's called stopping. Stopping is simply taking a second to step outside and observe yourself essentially from a third person perspective, analyzing your thoughts as a passive bystander and interrupting that train of thought. It's kind of like in Dora the Explorer when Swiper the Fox would come along and he's about to steal something and they say, hey, don't do that. And then he's like, darn, oh, you got me. And then he runs away. I say it all the time, our thoughts are just as much habits as our actions. The fuck it mentality is a mindset, a thought habit that has been building up most likely for a very long time. And it's pretty difficult to fight. However, if we build up the habit of stopping, we'll decrease the likelihood of falling for this trap in time. Step 3 is to acknowledge that setbacks happen and it's unavoidable. Forgive yourself and move on. Berating ourselves endlessly is just another habit that serves to keep us in this complacent and lazy state. We're humans, so we're imperfect. That means that this process of self-improvement is going to be very messy. Calling yourself a useless idiot every time you make a mistake doesn't really do a whole lot for you, except to keep you discouraged from trying again. Expect setbacks to happen. They're inevitable. There's nothing you can do to stop that. Just be mentally and physically prepared for when they do happen. Since the habit of stopping is a habit, it's a skill that you build up over time, what you're gonna find is that these lull periods, these periods of lethargy, will actually get shorter and shorter over time. So when I started this, these periods of lulls, this state of lethargy was actually my default. When I started self-improvement, it would be for a 2-week period, then I would go back to default, another 2-week period, default, another 2-week period. But the more and more I started and stopped, the more and more I utilized this stopping methodology. The default switched from being in this state of lethargy to being in the state of self-improvement, being in a healthy mindset. Now, whenever I find myself in these periods of lethargy, whenever I find myself in a period of like a funk, they really only last for a few days before I'm able to snap myself back out of it. Step 4, prepare for tomorrow today. As I talked about in my video about having a nighttime routine, the power of planning your day the night before is underestimated. Part of the reason why we find ourselves in a lull is because we don't know what to do with ourselves in the moment. If we plan out our day the night prior, we kind of eliminate that problem. It's just all about eliminating any foreseen difficulties, any foreseen obstacles ahead of time, so that your future self doesn't find themselves in a tricky situation. Just do your future self a favor, eliminate those tasks now so they don't have to think about it, they don't have to hem and haw, they don't have to debate with themselves over whether or not they're gonna do this thing. I could do this thing, but I don't really wanna do it. I could do this thing, I wanna feel productive, doing this thing isn't gonna make me feel productive. You're just gonna save yourself in the future from going into a cycle of madness and spending 2 hours thinking about what you could do instead of just doing it. That's gonna be it for this one, y'all. Thank you so much for watching. See you in the next one.